Okay, wow. I'm actually just a little bit overwhelmed that we're here. um, I don't know how long you've been on this journey. I can tell you, for me, it's been 5 years, and this particular I guess leg of the journey for me, when he started really speaking to me about rest, was in a lot of ways it was the most intense thing I think I've ever walked through, but at the same time it was the most amazing, the most revelation, the most freedom. Well, it's rest. you get on the other side. Literally, I feel like I was pushed through the eye of a needle. I feel like I was the camel. But I kind of want to go back to the story. I had started telling you a story, or told you part of a story about when I received this anointing oil, this ketubah oil, as a Christmas gift from my friend. And I knew when I received that gift that I was, because the Lord had spoken to me, I can't wait to spend Christmas with you. So I knew I was supposed to begin anointing myself Christmas Eve as I moved into Christmas. I knew that things were shifting, that was a demarcation for something new that he was getting ready to start. And so Christmas Eve, my youngest son was with me, and we were going to go to Christmas Eve service, and then I was going to drop him off at his dad's because he was going to be with his dad for Christmas. So we pulled into the church parking lot for Christmas Eve service, and my odometer turned 77777. I can't make these things happen. I don't make it. It's not like I drove around the block or anything. I mean, I looked down at my odometer when I put the car in park, and I just was amazed, because the number 7 stands for rest and completion. And, it's on the 7th day that God entered into his rest. And of course, 5 is about grace. And so there were 5 7s, and I can tell you it took a lot of grace to enter rest in this season. But so that was kind of my start, my introduction into knowing that I was shifting into a new season. And a few days later, he spoke to me what the season was about. He basically said, this is radical rest, radical receiving, no distractions, which sounded amazing, quite honestly. But I wanted to read, I ended our last session, kind of the segue to enter into this, about what Jesus tells us about coming to him. And I'm going to read it in a couple of different translations. I love it. This particular passage, Matthew 11:28, chapter 11, verse 28. In the Amplified, it says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden and overburdened, and I will cause you to rest. I will ease and relieve and refresh your souls." But then I also love the Message translation. And I think what I love about that overburdened, if you remember, Jesus would always, he would admonish, that's the right word I'm thinking of, the Pharisees for putting too heavy of a burden on the people that caused them from, being in a relationship with, or walking, and they put too heavy of a burden on them. So that overburdened, which then when you read the Message, it says this, the Message translation of Matthew 11:28 says this: "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. So that's what this is about. So about a little over a year ago, I entered into this season of radical rest, radical receiving, no distractions, and I don't feel like I need to go into the details of how he caused me to rest, all the things that what that looked like, because see, here's the tendency, again, I'll go back to what I said before, the tendency is if I tell you how he did it with me, that it's not, we're not making doctrine here. How he did it with me is not going to be anything like how he does it with you, so it's really, how he did it with me is really irrelevant, because it's not about a formula, it's not about creating some kind of doctrine around any of this, it's about your journey into rest and how he wants to do that with you. But I will share with you some of the things that he spoke with me, and a little bit about the intensity of what this looked like for me, because it's labor to enter that rest, and there's a reason for it, because there's a huge shifting that has to take place inside. A couple of things were going on all at the same time. One is I felt like he had told me, you're going to train for a marathon, and I just thought, awesome. I'd been in that season of kind of working out. I'm not crazy about running. It's not my deal, but I thought, okay, well, awesome. I've never run a marathon. I've never really run distance. I ran sprints when I was younger. And so, me, I Google and I download a training schedule for a marathon. And so I pulled up and I made it a long one. It's like a 26-week training schedule. I'm giving myself plenty of time, right, to get this thing, to be prepared for this marathon. Well, at the time he spoke that to me, I was finishing up an internal cleanse that I felt like he had called me to do. That was one of the fasts at the beginning of last year, beginning of 2011. I was doing this internal cleanse. And so when I downloaded this marathon training schedule, I had to kind of decide when I would start the training based on when I would be finishing up the cleanse. And so I decided my start date, and then I had to adjust the calendar for, I switched some days in the routine and how they fell during the week, because I was also in the process of serving on an event, and I knew that as part of serving on this event there would be one day a week where we fasted. Well, I didn't want to be in training on that day. I needed that to be a rest day. So I made all these adjustments, and then I put it on my calendar, and lo and behold, it made my marathon ready date actually fell on my birthday, which was amazing to me. And so the training starts, and I get out there and I'm running, and I'm out there probably my third or fourth training day, and the Lord's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm running. And he's like, yeah, why are you running? You hate to run. I'm like, real confused. Well, I'm training for a marathon. I thought we were training for a marathon, and I figured if he told me to run, I was gonna somehow enjoy running. And he said, Trisha, go sit down. This is a spiritual marathon. He said, as a matter of fact, I don't even want you working out. So this is when he completely shifted gears on me. He'd had me in this season of, physical fitness, and he taught me a lot about building spiritual muscle through that. But now he had me in this season of, go sit down, I don't even want you working out. So can you see how we can't make doctrine around things? It's about following the Lord, because he's going to want to teach us different things in different seasons. So it's never about the thing that we're doing. It's about what he's doing in us through that. So anyway, I go sit down. But I did feel like I could go for walks and stuff. So there was one day that I had gone for a long walk, and I just kept hearing him say rest over and over again, that word rest. And I mean, I can't get away from acronyms, so I'm kind of like, okay, what do you want to say about rest? And he said, Trisha, rest is receiving everlasting salvation and truth. He said, you don't enter rest and you don't come to a place of rest just because you've received everlasting salvation. Without truth overriding, which is again about that renewal of the mind, without truth overriding your beliefs that you currently have, you won't rest. That's the war that goes on within us, because when we receive salvation, the spirit of truth is put in us, but we still have all kinds of beliefs in our operating system that we're still trying to function out of when truth is trying to override those. So it's hard to rest. And what happens is we end up kind of being double-minded. We have this double-mindedness about us because our operating system was programmed this way, and now we've got this truth trying to override that. And at times we'll be speaking truth, but we'll be doing other things that don't align with what we say we believe. And so that's that whole double-minded, what appears out here as being double-minded is that thing that's going on in us as truth tries to settle over. And so what the Lord said to me was, he said, obviously he talked to me about receiving and how hard it is to receive. Because I was in this season, both of radical rest, radical receiving, no distractions. And he had, as I entered this season, he told me, this is about you only receiving. I don't want you giving anything again in this season. I don't want you tithing. I don't want you giving at all. He would not even let me send thank you notes. He said I could say thank you, but I couldn't give a thank you note. And he talked to me a lot about that, about why receiving, at least for me, receiving was so hard. And I had recently spent a few months, I had lived with my brother and sister-in-law for a few months in this specific transition I was in the middle of in my life. And I remember I was so excited when I transitioned out of their home, because they were wanting to do some remodeling, and from a point in time where my husband, we had built a custom home, and we had like all this leftover tile and some granite and stuff, and I was so excited that I could give that to them for their remodel. And so the Lord asked me, why did that make you feel so good to be able to give them the tile? And I'm like, well, it felt great to be able to do something in exchange. And he said, basically, bingo, that's it. He said, you turned it into an exchange. You didn't receive, you turned it into an exchange. And he showed me that that's what we do. That's what we do even, but he's trying to get us to receive. And there's something in us, or at least there's something in me that, and there were lots of things that work in me that made that receiving hard, and I kept trying to turn it into an exchange somehow. And I just heard him say, when will my people remove themselves from the equation and just receive? Like that's the whole role of the bride, receive what he's done. And so as he talked to me about rest, receiving everlasting salvation and truth, so receiving, he showed me lots and lots more about receiving. That little bit may have spoken to you, I don't know, but he may have more to say to you about receiving and about what hinders you from receiving. And there were other things in my life that did. But he then talked to me about this whole thing about truth, and he said, Trisha, your beliefs have no power, zero power to change truth, but my truth has the power to change what you believe. And examples, you can believe all you want that the earth is flat, but it doesn't change the truth that it's round. And we know that today, right? For a long time, people believed it was flat, but didn't change the fact that it was round. So an example that he gave me in this thing about truth is previously he, as I said, he had me in a season of fitness, and And he asked me a question before he called me into the season of fitness, during which time I had lost some weight. If he had bought me a smaller size pair of jeans than what I was wearing at the time, what would I have done with those jeans? And I'm like, well, I probably would have exchanged them for a size that fit. And he said, again, bingo, exactly, that's what we do. Where we've been running on this operating system, and sometimes truth will come along and we try to make that truth fit in the operating system in the size that we're currently in. We want to somehow tweak it, exchange it to fit. And that's where the laboring to enter into rest, that's what that is all about. Because he said, if he says that this is the size that I determined for you to be, and please hear me say right now, this has nothing at all to do with weight, size, BMI. It has nothing to do with physical body. This is a spiritual analogy. I'm not talking about weight. I'm not talking about diet, anything like that. But if he says this is who I am, if he says this is his design, let's put it in that context, that may be more reasonable. Will I do what's required to move from this design, this size, this structure, to fit myself into his truth? And it's you labor to do that. If any of you have ever tried to lose weight or whatever, I mean, it's effort. I mean, you labor to do that. And so, anyway, so there's that bit. And another thought just left my mind entirely. So maybe he didn't want me to talk about that. This is totally real life, and I'm wondering why my mind is blank at the moment. Receiving everlasting salvation and truth, labor to enter into his rest. Oh, okay, so I just found it again. This is why my mind went blank, because he was getting ready to talk to us about our minds. And isn't that funny? He'll use something like that to highlight exactly what he's getting ready to do. So what he began to talk to me about then was, do I understand what it means to worship him with my mind? We're to love the Lord our God with our whole heart, whole soul, and whole mind. Love him, and to love him means we worship him and we surrender those things to him. And like I said before, the heart is the throne or the seat of our will, right? And the soul is the throne of our emotions, so we surrender those. Well, our mind, what does it mean to surrender our mind to him? Well, our mind is our psyche. It's our throne. It's who we are. I mean, our mind contains us. Everything we've ever experienced in our lives, every meaning we've ever given to any of those things, every belief that's ever been planted in there. So our mind is basically our psyche. And you'll notice that that's the last thing, heart, soul, mind. And then strength, of course, is what we do. So when all of our doing becomes right, when all of this in here is in alignment, you don't have to worry about the doing once this is all right, because all the doing comes out of that. Surrendering your mind to the Lord is, my answer, of course, was, well, if you're asking me the question, chances are I don't know what that means. And he says it basically means you give me permission to question and to grab a hold of, if you will, your mind and bring everything into alignment with my truth. You give me permission to do that. And again, going back to Mary, you know, when you're in the presence of the Lord, you say yes. And then, you know, sometimes you don't even know what you're saying yes to, but your heart means it, right? I mean, I totally trust the Lord. And so, yeah, I'm like, yeah, you have permission. I surrender my mind to you. Well, when I say intense, I don't even know if there's a language for what that's like and the intensity of what I walk through, because every belief, even things that I thought were foundational for me, I didn't even realize. I mean, he shook everything. There were times, literally, and I shared this with friends, I felt like my brain was loose in my head. It's almost like, I mean, I could feel I could feel him working. Now, was it hard? Did it feel yeah, but I had given it to him, and he asked a lot of questions. You know, he asked me some really hard questions, and some of them, quite honestly, were so elementary, I was almost offended. I mean, he'd ask me, and I knew something profound was coming, because he'd be asking me these elementary questions that it's like, well, yeah, we all know that. And then he would ask this powerful question that shifted all of it. And it was during this season where I entered that terror of being deceived, where I really entered that place of real fear of being deceived. And I feel like I'm supposed to share this with you, and I have not shared this with very, very many people. There's been one other occasion where he had me share it with a group of individuals that I didn't really know. And you know, there's that place where, because in that season that I was in, you know, honestly, there were times when I thought, oh my gosh, am I losing my mind? Am I gonna, is someone gonna come haul me off with a straitjacket? Because it was shaking me so much. It was, my paradigms were shifting so much. It was, my footing felt off. But the bottom line is if God can ask you questions that shake, if there's anything that can shake you that much, chances are some of those things were sand anyway, right? And so, to say that I'm not sitting here a little bit, I'm sitting here going, really, Lord, you want me to share this part? And that's how I felt when I shared it with that other group of people. But you know, this is what the Lord is wanting me to share. And so for a couple of days, he was asking me like ridiculous questions. I mean, ridiculous, like, Trisha, does my word say to love your enemies or hate your enemies? Trisha, does my word say to forgive your enemies or not to forgive your enemies? Trisha, is it true that forgiveness is about you being bound to the thing that you don't forgive? Because see, that's really what forgiveness is. We're the ones that bind ourselves to what we're not forgiving. There's no freedom when we don't forgive. So, you know, is unforgiveness basically binding yourself to the thing that you don't forgive? Like, yeah, okay. Does my word say to give thanks in all things or not to be thankful in all things? Does my word say that I hate my creation or I love my creation? I mean, you know, just all of these things, really profound about gratitude. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, and my head is spinning. I'm like, okay, who have I not forgiven? I mean, seriously, I don't have any bitterness. I've forgiven everything. In fact, I had just walked through an intense season of forgiving something that I couldn't even imagine I had in me to forgive. The Lord knew how hard it would be for me, that he even prepared me. He let me know that this betrayal was getting ready to happen. And he said, and when it happens, you're going to have to walk in forgiveness and grace. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but I'm telling you today I can't. So you're going to have to prepare me for that. And he did. That's what he does. He doesn't want us to be caught off guard or be caught by surprise. So he completely prepared my heart. And when this betrayal happened, I was so able and ready and willing, and it was easy to forgive that. So I'm sitting here going, what have I not forgiven? I mean, I'm really, I'd even walked through a season. He'd even talked to me about forgiving Adam and Eve. I mean, can we forgive Adam and Eve for, for their humanity? And anyway, so I'm like, okay, Lord, I don't know where you're going with this. I've forgiven you, because I had to walk through that when I lost my son, and I had to wrestle with him about that, and I was angry and upset and didn't understand, and that may sound kind of weird about forgiving God, but again, I want to reiterate, forgiveness is never, ever, ever, ever about the other person. It's about the condition of your heart, and it's about releasing for freedom. And so anyway, so I'm 2 days of this, and something profound is getting ready to happen, because the questions are just like ridiculous. You feel stupid. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear the Lord say, Trisha, can you forgive Satan for all he's done to this world? And all of a sudden, I saw it. I mean, I understood what he was saying, because I understood the purpose of forgiveness, even though it took me into terror, and he had to remind me, because, I'll finish this conversation, but I want to go to the place after the night of wrestling with the wrestler, that dream, after being in terror. The Lord said, Trisha, seriously, do you think I am going to be upset with you for over-forgiving? I mean, again, come, let's reason together, is what he says to me all the time. Come, let's reason together. Am I ever going to punish you? Not that I've never felt punishment from him, but am I ever going to get on to you for over-forgiving? That's just radical forgiveness. Because again, forgiveness is never about what the other person has done. It's about the condition of your own heart and about your own freedom. So if I walk in unconditional love, can I have enemies? Do I get to have enemies? That's a whole nother mind-bending, twisty kind of thing to sit and ponder. But so the Lord asked me about, can I forgive Satan? And I just knew that forgiveness is always right. I mean, the Word tells us to forgive our enemies. And he asked me, one of the questions he asked is, are we ever supposed to pick up an offense that belongs to someone else? And so he asked me, have you picked up my offense? And in other words, is my thing, is God's thing with Satan, and I've picked up his offense. So I still chew on that. I don't know about that. But then he asked me, can you love Satan? Because I love all of my creation. And I just thought, oh my gosh, talk about a stretch. So yeah, I saw that. But then he asked me a really hard question. He said, can you be grateful for Satan? And I'm like, okay, Lord, you are going to have to help me with that one, because there's a difference between forgiving and loving and this thing of gratitude. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It's huge. And so what he said, well, let me show you how I am able to utilize Satan. He said, let's go back to the garden. He said, in the garden, I already knew what was in Adam and Eve, because I know everything. I already knew what was in them, but they didn't know it. And so, because I can use all things to work together for good, I was able, Satan, the whole tool of Satan was to expose to them what was missing, where their walk with me was not right, so that I could correct that. And if you look at Job, he took me to Job, and that's a hard book to read in the Bible, and I sat with Job for a while because see, the Lord allowed Satan to touch Job's life, but when I went back and kind of really read Job, I noticed at the beginning of Job that there were things that he did every day out of fear that something would happen. So see, fear isn't faith. So the Lord knew where his faith was weak and where his faith was strong. And that Job had a great faith, but there were areas of weakness in his faith because he walked in fear in certain areas. And so the Lord allowed Satan to touch those areas where there were, because the Lord wanted to come alongside Job and show him, expose to him where there were weaknesses, right? Same with Peter. I mean, Jesus tells Peter, Satan's asked to sift you. And the whole purpose of that is because Peter had a call and Peter had a destiny to fulfill, but there were areas that were weak that he wasn't even aware of. He didn't even know. He thought he was strong and invincible, and he didn't even know there were areas of weakness. But the Lord did, and so those had to be exposed to Peter so his faith could, because see, God is all about, he's the author and perfecter of our faith. So we need to be aware of those areas where we walk in fear and where our faith isn't strong enough. So those are some of the things that the Lord showed me about how this whole thing worked. And all of a sudden I was utterly grateful for the things that had come into my life that would have been judged. Remember the knowledge of good and evil, that I may have judged as evil or bad or whatever. And when really what the Lord was showing me is that all of those things, because he uses all things together for good, he's used them in my life for good, because he's been able to expose, if you will, my areas of weakness so that he could come in and bring me what was missing, and so that I could have the fullness. See, he knows what's missing, and we need to understand what's missing so we can receive the fullness. And so anyway, needless to say, I went into this huge terror about, oh my gosh, what if I'm being deceived? And so that's how that whole story played out there. So that's kind of a interesting, I don't know what you're going to do with that, but it's worth pondering. It's worth sitting and thinking about, because really it's about our own freedom. And I can tell you, it very much felt like being pushed through the eye of the needle. It felt, it was intense, it was hot, it was so good. It rattled a lot in me, but I can sit here today and tell you that there is a place of rest where you know that the love that is inside of you is powerful enough to carry you through every fear that you have. There is a place of rest where you know you own your love, and no one has the power to make you not love them. See, if there's conditions, if your love is conditional, it means you've given those conditions the power to control your love. And so to be in a place where, you can't make me not love you. To be in a place where I have no enemies. There's a place of rest where you don't even see sin anymore. You just see what's missing in people, and you have this amazing, incredible compassion because you see God's glory everywhere. You see God's glory hidden everywhere in people. them to receive the fullness, for that to be released. You long for them to have what's missing. And you get to a place where you don't even see evil. All you see is the goodness of God. You see his hand. You see him using everything for good. And even when you can't necessarily see it, you trust his heart so explicitly because you know his hand is at work even if you don't see it. You get to a place where, I remember when I was at the lake and the whole thing about false measures, I remember telling the Lord, I want to walk in everything that you have for me. I want to walk in the fullness of your power, but please don't give it to me until I'll walk in it in a way that gives you honor and glory, where it won't be a measure, where I won't use it as a measure of my value and worth. And we talk about so much about the gifts that come with the Spirit, and the power that is demonstrated because of the Spirit. But I'm telling you, there's a place of rest where you don't even need those gifts anymore. You're at a place where you don't need discernment because you're so consumed with your relationship with the Lord, and you so see things through his eye. You're not worried about what's going on in the other person. You're not bothered about what you don't need to understand. All you need to do is respond the way God would respond. You don't need discernment anymore. You don't need prophecy anymore because you're living in today. You're living in right now, and you have everything you need right now in this moment. You know what you need to do today, and you know that tomorrow has enough to take care of itself. So there's just this place of peace and rest where you I don't think about time. I live in this place of really being, it sounds weird, but I kind of feel like I'm outside of time. Time is not something that I spend time, I have no thoughts for time. I don't have thoughts for provision. I don't have thoughts about my body. I know I'm not my body. I don't have a body consciousness, obviously. You're lucky the Lord let me brush my teeth and wash my face. Not that it matters to you, it mattered to me. But you just get to this place where you know because you've proven it. You've proven it in your journey with the Lord. You've proven his word to be true for you. That you see his glory and his goodness everywhere, and you just want freedom for everyone. You want everyone to walk. You want everyone to know. I want everyone to know him the way I know him. I want everyone to experience the love and the peace and the grace and the mercy of the Lord the way I have. That's my heart's desire. And more than anything, that's his heart's desire. So I am in awe of the time we've spent together. I am so humbled that the Lord has allowed me to be open and transparent and share a little bit of what my journey has looked like. I can't wait for all eternity to hear your stories of what your journey has looked like. I just bless you. I bless you. I pray his peace and rest over you. And I don't know how he's going to draw you into the place or how he's going to work this rest through you. But I want to encourage you that he is with you. And no matter what, you love him and he loves you. And that's the greatest truth that you can ever stand on or hold on to, no matter what is happening. You love him and he loves you. Be blessed.